It's now time for our first panel discussion, which is about leveraging opportunities in the world of modern communications. I would like to introduce to you our panelist and moderator. André Xuereb is an associate professor at the University of Malta. He leads the Department of Physics, lectures undergraduate classes in atomic and quantum physics, and leads the Quantum Research Group. Marcin Cichy from Access Partnership is an engineer and analyst specializing in market access analytics, 5G and spectrum, broadband mapping, infrastructure access, and regulatory affairs. Peter Dunn is a director of European Relations at Cullen International, with responsibility for developing and maintaining close relationships with Cullen International clients and other contacts in Europe. This morning we also had a change of speaker from I2CAT. I welcome Sergi Figuerola, who is founder and CTO of 5G Barcelona and external advisor of 5G Ventures. Nicole Darabian works in the international team of Ofcom UK, where she specializes in internet and technology policy. And the discussion will be led by Antoine Sciberras. Antoine is the Chief Officer for Spectrum Management and Technology at the MCA. He has more than 20 years' experience across technology, commercial, and regulatory domains in electronic and digital communications. I leave the floor to you.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Philippe, for the very inspiring introduction this morning. A word which you said resonates a lot. What is in it for me? We will be talking about technological innovations which underpin the next 10 years. But these technological innovations will not deliver any benefits unless we really understand, and by we mean each of us individually, but also the society and the economy at large, what is in it for me? Because it's useless innovating in technologies unless we can use those technologies and we can use them effectively. So I would like to start this morning by addressing André. So André, as Malta's digital ambassador, what do you consider as the immediate needs to increase Malta's capacity to tap into the upcoming opportunities which Europe is planning for the next 10 years? We see a lot happening across the European member states with initiatives led by the European Commission, amongst which the path to the digital decade, but also the regulation concerning multi-country projects and billions of euros of funding being put forward through programs like the Horizon Europe and Connecting Europe facility.
Thank you for having me, and it's an immense pleasure to be on this panel and to be in this room with, or virtual room, of course, with some very distinguished speakers. And thanks, Antoine, for giving me a monumental question, which I'll try and summarize in a couple of minutes. It's also a problem with inviting someone who lectures for a living. You know, I tend to blab. Okay, so I mean, if I were to kind of unpack what are, how we can leverage these opportunities, sort of in the immediate future. I mean, there's several things where I would point out. I mean, one is kind of introspective. as a nation, we have several authorities like the MCA, like many others, and so on. We need to start working together a bit better, because we do have strength in numbers, and I think we haven't really recognized that so much, especially when it comes to leveraging the massive opportunities that the European Commission is making available through its funding, through its framework programs. If we align our strategies a bit better, we would have a much better chance of attracting funding there. But this is sort of introspective. From the point of view of leveraging the opportunities that there are outside, but also using them to attract economic actors. One of the biggest things, and I myself am very familiar with Digital Europe at the moment. One of the biggest things there is the need for matching funding. So, for example, as a nation, we should also try and look at mechanisms to find, plug the gaps in matching funding and help small startups, help companies leverage these funding opportunities. And this could, we could be very creative. I mean, we could, for example, encourage pre-commercial procurement from the public sector for new technological solutions, for communications, for this and for that. So by being a bit creative, I think, and working together, we can help leverage a lot of opportunities. I think we also need to kind of take a broader perspective as a country and sort of look at the life cycle, the technological life cycle as a whole. So rather than thinking about the leveraging no worries. Rather than thinking about the final stages of the life cycle, we need to also look at what's going to happen in 10, 20, 30 years in the future. And I'm a quantum scientist. I live in the future in some sense, and perhaps this is why I see such a stark problem. So yeah, we also need to really look at the life cycle in general, and that would allow us to hook on to, for example, Horizon Europe, Digital Europe, connecting your facilities in a comprehensive way, but also in a way where one block builds onto the next, rather than just sporadic, separate programs and projects.
Thank you. I'd like to move now to Peter. Thank you, Peter, for being here today, this morning. André mentioned life cycles, and my thoughts went to the life cycles in mobile technology. We now are in the 5G stage, with research already starting in the 6G area. And we see a lot happening in this area with initiatives like the Connectivity Toolbox and also funding programs aimed at incentivizing 5G rollouts and fiber and moving the world towards constant connectivity. What is your opinion on the importance but also challenges of these initiatives?
Thank you, Antoine, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in this panel and your prestigious conference. I think the opportunities, and what strikes me, I think, about the current evolution of communication systems today is that with 5G and fiber broadband, we're going to have two things which I think are quite different from previous generations. We're going to have near ubiquitous connectivity, in that everything and everyone will be connected. But also connected in a way that will really allow highly intelligent, tailored applications and services. And I think that's really it's not so much a step change, because all these things are evolutionary, but I think that's really the change that we're seeing happen today. And so this is going beyond the sort of commonplace things that we've become used to, like teleworking or my remote participation today. But we're going to see ubiquitous connectivity. So every piece of inventory, let's say in an e-commerce warehouse, will be connected and can be tracked. Every piece of equipment in a home or office can be monitored, its use measured, and the ability to predict when it might need to be repaired or replaced. And this connectivity is going to be made much more easily usable by the new applications and services that will become available. Some are already available, of course, now. So you don't just see a stream of information, but you're translating that data into actions that either take place automatically through AI or some other systems that generate bills or send delivery information to customers, let's say, or that trigger alerts from human agents. So I don't know, so customers are prompted to choose when or where a delivery will take place. And I think one of the things, and the previous speaker touched upon this, to really encourage these developments to be as widespread as possible and to be as beneficial as possible, is to find ways to really incentivize or prompt cooperation and interaction between different organizations, between government agencies, between different countries and regions for investment reasons, for standards making, just for sharing best practice. So if I can give you perhaps a couple of examples, and some of these might seem commonplace, but I think if you look at the wider implications and wider interactions, you'll really start to see the benefits that can be delivered. So, I think it's pretty easy to see that already some courier or transport companies in kind of e-commerce world can set up systems that, will track e-commerce items for delivery, they communicate with their customers to optimize delivery. But that part is only simple in so much as it's a part that's controlled by a single company. And if you want the really wider economic benefits and maybe, broader competition, thinking from a regulatory point of view, you need to look at the interactions with other parties. So if the delivery company is separate from the supplier or the organization that stores the inventory, providing their fulfillment and warehousing, how does the transport company make sure that each organization communicates with each other effectively, automatically, ideally, and without any problems? What about the customs and VAT information that needs to be provided to government agencies and across borders? What about the customer service applications of the e-commerce retailer? How is that delivery information kept up to date and connected seamlessly and for example, for returns? And then in a different example, and one I'm working in quite a lot today, think of how connectivity can help us to address today's environmental challenges, for example, through smart homes and buildings. With really improved connectivity and smart applications, you can enable the establishment of mini grids, where a subset of homes with renewable energy, say from their solar panels, can be self-sufficient, not just to power their own homes, but also to charge their electric vehicles in the street. And maybe even if they have excess energy, unneeded energy, they can contribute that to local or regional energy grids. But of course, that too is going to be dependent on effective standards and interoperation between the different players. So I guess in short, what I'm saying is that it seems to me that we're close to solving the connectivity part. I don't underestimate at all the costs and time it takes to, for example, provide a coverage of 5G over an entire territory. But I think we're getting close to solving that part. But to really realize the huge value of this ubiquitous connectivity, I think it's going to require a lot more connectedness and cooperation between the players in the market and government agencies. And this might be an area for future focus as well as the regulatory challenges that Philippe talked about before.
Thank you, Peter. Indeed, it's a complex set of interactions, okay, not only in terms of processes, but also in terms of bringing all the parties together to experiment and act and deliver on the benefits which technological innovation can give rise to. Sergei, thank you for joining us this morning. I2CAT has a long track record of successfully leading and delivering large-scale EU-funded initiatives. What inspires I2CAT and what is its most important purpose?
Yeah. Hello, good morning, everybody. Thanks, first of all, for the invitation to this excellent event. Well, I mean, I2CAT is a non-for-profit research center, as you said, and our inspiration comes from we were created 20 years ago, and it comes from the Internet 2 initiative that was launched in the US. So here's where we started to understand the importance of the concept also about breakable networks, understanding that if you want to make research, you need to experiment, see the outcomes in a real life. I mean, real life, I mean real deployment, real testbeds, not just in the lab ecosystem. And then also we were inspired with the fact that we have to be closely related with the government strategies. Actually, why? Because, I mean, as I said, 20 years ago, we saw that, for example, again, aligned with the US strategy, that the president of the government is also the CTO of the country. And it allows you that you align the research strategies that you foresee in your region together with the strategies that the departments of the government might have. So here, for example, what I can say is that the president of I2CAT is the vice president of the Catalan region. which again is the Minister of Digital Policies too. So then you were commenting about our purpose. I think that the good thing would be to tell you what our vision is as a research center. I mean, ITUCAT wants to lead the challenge of designing the digital society of the future based on research and innovation, we cannot forget it, in advanced digital technologies. I mean, through talent generation and cooperation with the stakeholders of the local administration, digital communities, and the innovation ecosystem that we have in Europe, altogether we envision Catalonia as a creative, empowered, and innovative society, where the knowledge and the digital technology are the service of the people. These are the vision that we are pursuing, which is a big challenge, I have to say. But also, since Catalonia is not that big region either, we try to see how we are able to commit this alignment. To do so, we are a private partnership in this ecosystem that we understand as a collaboratory. I mean, we call ourselves a collaboratory, which means a place where collaboration happens. And here, what we have is in the public sector, we have the regional, I mean, the Catalan government, but not just the Catalan government. We have different departments from the Catalan government, which is the health department, the media department, the telecommunications department, the cybersecurity department. Then we also have the City Council of Barcelona. Then we have a set of stakeholders which are in the private side, where we have telecom operators, Vodafone, Orange, manufacturers, Cisco, Fujitsu, Juniper, and then infrastructure providers like Cellnex, or media providers too, like MediaPro, which brings a set of powerful companies on this area. And then we have a close liaison with the technical universities of the region, because, I mean, this center is not just to build basic research, because this is already done by the universities, but we have the bridges to closely work with them on demand whenever it is needed, and we don't need to wait for long time contracts to set up this type of agreements. So whenever we have an activity, whether it's a project, whether it's a need that requires this basic research, that's something that the university is working very hard, then we join those people, those professors in the teams that we have in a very easy way, and then we develop the project. Then another important thing that characterizes ITUCAT is, I would say, that the three main pillars that we have. I mean, we have a team of people, what we call the technological and digital research activity, which people with large involvement in the EC research projects, people that are looking for 6, 10 years, sometimes ahead. I mean, following the process of the European Commission programs, like H2020, Horizon Europe. Here is where we generate what we call assets, which are our technology valuable assets that in the future we want to transfer to the market, and where we work together with the companies, with the high-tech companies. And this is an important differentiating factor, because what we cannot put, for example, is to put these researchers to work with the local companies of the region, because then the mindsets are not the same. And those companies, they don't need research to evolve to make a qualitative jump. So then is when the second pillar is what we call the digital advanced technologies innovation, where we have a set of people which expertise on technological areas, not pure experts in research, but people that are able to help the local ecosystem, SMEs, micro companies, or big companies that do not require research for 4 years, but they require a quality jump in the technology advancement. And this is quite important, because important is that you have to know whenever you create a PPP and you want to establish collaborations, you have to put people that can speak the same language together, because otherwise things does not happen. And here in this area is where we develop, as I said, projects for the private sector, for the public sector too. ITUCAT is based on a mission-oriented also and dual-use approach, which means that we develop projects with the regional administration, which are missions, understanding that the big customer of the region is administration itself, is the biggest one. So we identify a set of challenges with them. We work with them on developing these projects together with industry in order to be sure that later on the outcome of this work can be transposed to the industry and they can explode this in other regions too. And here also in this activity, we also work on the technology transfer agreements, and also we are managing what we call the Digital Catalan Alliance, which means it's an umbrella where we have the different value chains of the digital sectors of the region. which allows us to identify their needs, to put those needs in future research, and to be sure that then we are able to help them on making a quality jump. And the third pillar, now to finish, is what we call the digital social technologies strategy. So as I said, we are closely related with the strategy of the region, and what it means is that we have to work also in order to avoid I would say the increase factor that could happen on the digital divide. Digital divide between the technology and the society. I mean, all of us are aware of the fact that the technology is moving extremely fast. I mean, those that have been in the research field for a long time, you know that in the past you could stay doing research in an area for 4, 5, even 6 years. Now you know that this time frame has been reduced, developments are much fast, and then we have the risk that the society is not able to catch up with this evolution. And then you can have what we understand as a not integrated innovation in the region, because you have different speeds and it's when things collapse. So the idea is that we are working with the government on creating different collaboratories all around the region, different hubs, where we engage different actors of the society with the technology that is moving forward nowadays, trying to, as I said, reduce as much as possible this digital divide that might happen if you don't take care of the society, if you are only doing research. So these are mostly, I would say, the main factors that have been inspiring us, that makes us work very hard, and in the end is our people. I mean, I2CAT exists because of the people we are, of the talent that we have, of the motivation that they have, and also with the illusion that they see the fact that what they are doing aims at impacting the society that they are living in.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sergi. On the topic of co-creation and partnerships, I'd like to invite Nicole from Ofcom to tell us about the external collaborative structures which Ofcom is putting in place in order to incentivize collaboration with industry. Can you hear us, Nicole? Okay, let me pass the question. Pose. Yes, indeed. So let's change the topic orientation a little bit now. Marcin, what are the key challenges European operators are facing whilst trying to meet these new digital decade targets? We've talked about academia, we've talked about research institutions, but industry is finally what delivers the service and product to us.
Thanks, Antoine, for this question, and thanks all our colleagues from MCA for this celebration. It's undoubtedly the best occasion for all of us to meet and to brush up our knowledge about the recent Brussels development and what is in front of us. As Philip said, we've got extremely huge amount of projects and business cases, use cases to take an in-depth look at. I'm an engineer, I'm a lecturer, so to some extent a teacher. I'm not a farmer, but who knows? But having in mind all this wide range of, let's say, solutions delivered for the, let's say, different branches of economy, undoubtedly the digital decade targets are extremely important for all of us to fulfill the both society and industry requirements. Let me remind what we are talking about. It's at least 1 gigabit per second till 2030, which means that it's far more than expected, let's say, a couple of years ago when we were talking about the European digital agenda with at least 100 megabits per second delivered by wide range of technologies. Right now, it's undoubtedly about the fiber optics and the 5G. Antoine, you are responsible for spectrum, so you know exactly what we are talking about as far as the frequencies are concerned, and how this, let's say, rare resource is crucial for the entrepreneurs to deliver what needs to be delivered. So first of all, it's about the technology and the common understanding that there is no other way than to find the technologically mixed solutions for the, let's say, complementary technologies, starting from the fix, which seems to be the most important right now as far as, for example, EU funds are concerned. I mean, FTTH, in any way could, let's say, deliver the appropriate capacity, but we've got wide range of other solutions like fixed wireless access, like, let's say, pure 5G, like combine wireless radio and fiber optics infrastructure, last mile solutions to fulfill an appropriate capacity from the both end user and the industry point of view. So absolutely technology seems to be crucial, and from the entrepreneur's point of view, this is some kind of a need for some kind of predictability, I would say, from the decision-making point of view. So as far as we've got the targets till 2030, this is quite good that the scenario has already been written by Brussels team. What we need to deliver right now, it's a level playing field for all technologies, all providers, from the, let's say, end-user value-added chain perspective, as well as for the, let's say, industry 4.0 perspective. Just to give you the flavor of what we are talking right now in Europe, as far as the, let's say, verticals collaboration is concerned, it is popularly believed that such kind of branches like energy, like transport, like, let's say, as was mentioned, IoT solutions and advanced, let's say, ICT developments, that they all could be, let's say, some kind of flywheel for the both industrial and social revolutions. The second area that should be covered is the economy one, and the fact that we are lacking incentives for investments. The highest penetration in wide range of countries, let's say for mobile, it's more than 140%. We've got the extremely huge price elasticity of demand, which means that everyone is invited to change the provider at, let's say, 24 hours right now. Last but not least, extremely low retail prices with the, let's say, margin squeezed, and which means that this, let's say, old-fashioned, let's say, regulation regarding the margin squeeze, the ratio between the wholesale and retail prices would not exist anymore. We need to look for another business models to guarantee an appropriate return on assets from the end user, from the entrepreneur's point of view. This is quite crucial to have this common understanding that no one wants to be a Santa Claus, and there is no space for, let's say, for the money spending that would not be recovered by, let's say, by the market. Which means that, for example, such kind of projects like Resilience Recovery Facility, like operational program regarding Digital Poland, like Horizon, like the other, let's say, opportunities for operators to use the European funds for infrastructure rollouts should be, let's say, organized in this way that we can once again guarantee a level playing field for a wide range of stakeholders and to guarantee the, let's say, cross-sectoral approach. This is, I mean, last but not least, this is this kind of, let's say, difficulty we've got, that having in mind our historic mindset, we believe that the telco industry is the most developmental, we are extremely up to date, and we are, let's say, the best to guarantee both regulatory matters as well as the entrepreneurs, infrastructure rollout delivered by entrepreneurs. But this is not how it will be, let's say, organized in the future. We need to think about the verticals, incentives, and how to collaborate to leverage the costs and to guarantee an appropriate return on assets from both B2C and B2B level.
Thank you. Thank you. Predictability is what regulators should try to ensure in the markets, but will old-fashioned regulation serve us well? I'd like to invite Nicole, thank you for coming back, to tell us what Ofcom is doing and how its role is evolving organizationally to tackle regulation in new sectors.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Indeed.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your patience. So first of all, thanks for having me today here, and greetings from London. So yeah, great question. So, you know, as some of you may know, Ofcom has new duties coming our way, including new legislation on network security, as well as online safety. So we're very conscious of that, and we are ready to adapt and develop as we keep pace with change across our sectors. And for that, we've put in place a program aimed at better equipping the organization to improve current practices, as well as understand and better respond to changes to the sectors we regulate. Something to note is that, of course, this is not an overnight change, right? It's a organizational change, so it does take time. I think it's important to note that we have been investing both. Part of the process is really to ensure that we have the right talents and skills in place. So as part of this, we have been developing our technology program and have actually recently welcomed a new CTO who joined us from Amazon, and he brings a wealth of experience from the online space. Programmatically speak can also give you a couple concrete examples of how the organization is adapting. So first of all, we have a data innovation hub program, which has been created to transform.
We might be having some problems.
Our ability to manage and use.
Nicole, can you try switching off the camera because we have some problems hearing you?
That are working closely with policy or operational teams to develop new tools to analyze and or automate processes. So really looking at internal,
Nicole,
I would say regulatory practice and how to string those.
Nicole, we have some problems hearing you. Can you please try switching off the camera?
I personally find very exciting. And I think that's to what Andrea's point at the beginning in terms of emerging technology and horizon scanning. So it feeds directly into this. And essentially this team, what they do is that they look at how existing technologies are evolving, which new technology are starting to emerge, and really how they might impact our communications industry, which with all sorts of technologies that we talked about today.
Please, can you, thank you. Sorry for that. Evidently, technology still doesn't work and doesn't serve us well, and we have really a long way to go in order to effectively deliver on the real benefits of connectivity. So I think we really need to go back to the research drawing board and see how we can fix these issues. André, as a researcher, okay, you conduct research in quantum-based communications. Let's try to make sure first that we get our normal connectivity, working fine. How can we best foster collaboration between academy and industry in order to deliver technology that works?
Another massive question, but thank you. And this whole thing just goes to show that after 2 years, we're still kind of struggling to find our feet with hybrid conferences, and also connectivity between two islands on the opposite side of Europe. It doesn't really work very well, it seems. But on a more serious level, I'd just like to kind of call out a couple of points which were made before by Peter and Sergei separately. Peter at one point mentioned the idea of standards, and I want to at some point brush by standards if I have enough time. But more closer to the question that you asked, I've been to Barcelona a few times, and I've never been to I2CAT, but I've been to ICFO, which is a photonics research cluster, and I think I can safely say that, just like ICFO, I2CAT is a really, really good example of how you get this collaboration between academia, industry, government, and all the right stakeholders. I like the idea of calling it a collaboratory, Sergei. I don't know if it's your term, but I'm gonna steal it. So ultimately, though, and it's if I may zoom into the local market for a second, one of the biggest issues we face is a matchmaking issue. Academics don't always know what the industry problems are, and industry doesn't always know whom to speak to get those problems solved. So there really is that mismatch, and to a certain extent, you can also see it elsewhere at least elsewhere in Europe, and this is why I wanted to specifically call out the I2CAT and the ICFO models, because this is one of the issues that they try and target. So this idea of matchmaking between academia and industry. One thing I wanted to mention, and I said I'll call up one of Peter's points about standardization. So forgive me, Peter, I didn't quite catch exactly how you said it, but I just wanted to take a point from your mention of the word standardization, because, and this is perhaps something which a regulator sees a lot of, but ultimately standardization is interesting because it does help spur innovation, and this is something which I would say it's not just academia and industry that have to speak better to each other and get closer together, but I would say the regulators and the governance side of things also plays a very, very, very important role in that. And speaking of governance, I mean, I also want to bring in a point that Marcin made about regulators, and you said it in a very different way about the pressures that face telecommunications companies nowadays in terms of profit and business models and so on. Ultimately, regulatory pressures and the idea of better serving our clients, in whichever way we define it, does help push companies to innovate, both in their business models and their technology. So again, I mean, there's this idea that regulators and the right governance can really, really push things forward. And if you create a challenge, then academia and industry have to work together to overcome it. So I would say the matchmaking, but also sort of market pull in that sense, but also market push, trying to make sure that we apply the right pressures to get our companies to innovate and bring on board new technologies.
Excellent. Thank you. Nicole, apologies for having to cut off. I hope now that you can hear us and that you can intervene to tell us a little bit how Ofcom is organizing itself to promote collaboration and partnerships.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Excellent. I've turned off all incoming videos, so hopefully this will help. And I'm so sorry we're having these issues. So so picking up on your point organizationally, so as I was saying, we are very aware as a regulator that we have new duties coming our way, and namely regulating new sectors that we have not traditionally regulated. So this includes new legislation on network security as well as online safety. And so really part of the process is to ensure that we have the right skills and talent in place to ensure that we can regulate effectively in the future. So of course, what I was saying is really that this is not an overnight change, but we have been investing internally and externally to get ourselves prepared. So I can say that we have been developing our technology program quite heavily, and I've even recently welcomed a new CTO that joined us from Amazon and brings a wealth of experience from the online space. And programmatically as well, I can give you a couple concrete examples on how we're preparing ourselves. So first of all, we have a data innovation hub, and this has been created to transform our ability to manage and use data. In practice, what it means is that we have a team of data scientists that can work closely together with policy and operational teams to develop new tools to analyze data and automate processes to really streamline the internal regulatory processes. And then we also have an emerging technology program, which I was saying speaks to some of what André was saying initially about, looking ahead in horizon scanning. And this program I personally find quite exciting, which essentially is a team that looks into how existing technologies are evolving and what new technologies are starting to emerge and what might be their impact in our communications industry. So in fact, I can even point you to a magnificent piece of work, a report that was published in January 2021 that really spotlights some of these trends emerging that the team has identified. And speaking of collaboration, this wasn't something that we've just went ahead and do research and that's it and we publish it. No, we really did a concerted effort to call on industry, call on academia, call on technologists to allow them to also give them their views of what they see happening, what they see emerging, what might be important for their future in this sector. So this was a result of a call for input, so a call for consultation in 2020, as well as a lot of subject matter experts interviews. And the end result is that we published this report, and really I highly recommend it. I might even send around the link. But these are just a few examples of how we're preparing and collaborating for the future.
Thank you, Nicole. Sergi, in your experience, what are the key success factors for creating successful collaborative infrastructure clusters, which, as you mentioned earlier, bring together not only the academical aspects, but also the industry, the public actors together. And 5G Barcelona comes to mind, to which you are co-founder. If you could tell us more about the success story and the, let's say, the key selling points which deliver on these collaborations.
Yes, sure. Again, as I said before, 5G Barcelona is another public-private initiative. Okay. Here, what we agreed together is, again, always the way to move these things forward is because there is a clear strategy that makes sense in the region too. And this is how we support all this type of collaborations. Here, what we saw is that there were 4 main teams, I would say organizations, that were key leaders in the 5G PVP ecosystem. And the idea was, why don't we try to put all this effort together to empower the capabilities that the region might have on strengthening the strategy towards 5G. And even more considering that every year there is the Mobile Capital event, Mobile Congress event celebrated in Barcelona, where you have the biggest stakeholders there. So then one of the things that we realized is that all these centers, what they have is their facilities, but with their facilities, you cannot just, as I said before, engage into the society, not even go easily to the market. So then what we agreed is, why don't we convert Barcelona in what we understand as an open and neutral city-wide lab, which means of why we are not able to validate and adopt 5G technologies and applications in real-life environments that happens all across the city. Because one of the things that we heard also is that people were listening about 5G, but when people, they don't know what technology is about, people are more scared than engaged about using it. So it means that the unknowledge is what can also block that the society understands the purpose of that. So what we agreed is that to run different pilots, trials with different verticals, or I would say a private sector from the verticals of the region. And today I have to say that it has been very successful. This initiative has created synergies with the whole ecosystem. It offers experimental infrastructure tests, but unfortunately they only exist during the period of the pilot because it was too expensive to maintain them across the year. And then we had to decide whether to have a couple of them running a whole year or having several of them happening across the year. We decided that was a better idea to have different type of activities happening all around, right? But on this experimentation, we prototype, we implement, and we identify what the new digital solutions could be also for the city to stimulate the existing innovation ecosystem, to attract foreign investment. They are coming for the Mobile World event. Why don't they also try to use the city to show their technologies? Because at some point, they can only show the technology that they are doing inside their booths, inside the conference. So we offer the chance of those that are interested to use the city to validate technology. So for example, 2 years ago, because you know the last 2 years, not 3 years, because last 2 years with the COVID, it's been very complex. But we did a 5G with edge technologies demonstration together with SEAT manufacturer, with Telefonica on the streets nearby the conference, where we were able to communicate electrical bicycles with the cars to try to avoid crashes and the crosses, because what happens in Barcelona is when you have all this electrical now type of movement, it's difficult to control of it. And we try to identify what the future could be, but again, demonstrating in a real city, in a real ecosystem, which is very complex because you have the policeman that they have to accept. You have there are many things that are complexities, but then this initiative sorts it out to facilitate things happen. And this is the success we have. And then it said, how you make it to work? It's trust. You can only make things work if there is confidence within the people, and it happens in a grassroots approach. It's not the fact that you have an up and down decision that, hey, you have to create this. No, it's the fact that you make this happen in a grassroots approach between the organizations, And then it's when you convince the leaders that, hey, this may happen, this is needed, and this is very important. So nowadays we have already been running around, I would say, 30 pilots in the city, from the health sector, from the media sector, from the B2X, I mean the mobile sector, so many different sectors. We have created different, what we call open labs across the city, which, for example, we have a lab with Telefonica, with different operators. All these labs are with operators, but we have a lab with Telefonica where we have 5G and narrowband IoT technologies for people to go to test and validate with the infrastructure of an operator. We have certain areas where the operator has given us rights of use of a spectrum. So it means that we can offer, so far it's only 20 megahertz. I know that it's not enough to validate all the 5G technology, right? But it's something that a company or a startup cannot easily access unless they have an agreement with the operator, so we can make these tests. We have another lab that we just have open, and we are deciding about creating a place where you can test technologies with a car manufacturer. So we have different labs. We are organizing workshops to convince the industry. We are putting small offices of 5G Barcelona into, for example, health hubs to show them the potential of 5G with the teleimmersion, with all presence, and how it could change the vision that these startups have. And there are many activities happening around this. And I think that, again, what you have to be sure that the collaboration happens is that continuously there are things that happen and you demonstrate that there is impact. I mean, it's like an agile procedure. It's not just the fact that, hey, I start and in 1 year I give you the result. No, it's like every month there should happen things, even they are small. But you have to think to keep the community activated, see that they are there for a purpose, that things happen, and that makes sense, this collaboration.
Thank you, Sergi. Impact. All of these developments have impacts in terms of benefits, but they also have impacts in terms of environmental aspects. So we have some challenges here in order to ensure that whatever we undertake is sustainable. Peter, can you elaborate on this aspect a little bit more, also within the context of the opportunities of the Green Deal?
Yes, thank you. I mean, I think it's true. And I mentioned some examples in my first intervention that I think communications and communications players have a really huge role to play in helping us to address the environmental challenges of today. What I observe as well, and maybe it's not exactly to your point, Antoine, but is that no matter how much of a contribution the communications sector makes, and there are various reports by ETNO and the GSMA to show just how important communications is to really enable a lot of the environmental initiatives of today. But no matter how hard the sector works to help green everything else, I think it's still a lot of pressure on the sector itself to show that it itself is performing well in terms of its carbon footprint. And I think some of the key areas the sector needs to address are data centers. This is really a big area of debate already. So the use of renewable energy there, super efficiency, what they call power usage effectiveness, is one of the key measures. The reuse of water used for cooling there. There's also, in terms of the manufacture of electrical equipment, the sourcing and the passporting of rare earth materials, and this kind of idea of passporting rare earth materials is also very important. The communications aspect is interlinked there as well. And then also the recycling, repairing, and waste disposal of electrical equipment will be a key factor in the greening of the sector. And then many softer measures as well, like encouragement or educating consumers to adopt behavior which is less wasteful than we have today, perhaps. So there are some debates in some countries already about rules about video streaming, about automatic downloads. There's discussion about the renewal of devices, because I think it's clear that in terms of the devices we use, the footprint of the usage is far less than the footprint of the manufacture of those devices. And also just providing consumers with information on the footprint that they have themselves when they use data. So I think there's a lot of activities that the sector needs to make to show that it itself is performing well. And in addition to the contribution the sector will make through improved communications for energy companies and other sectors to improve their environmental performance.
Thank you, Peter. So one last question to bring everything together. Marcin, what is the role that regional policymakers play in actually leveraging all these opportunities?
Well, the role is undoubtedly crucial. I started with the Brussels stakeholders and movers and shakers, giving you some kind of, let's say, helicopter view, what's going on and what are the most important KPIs. But it is obvious that we need to try to incorporate all those rules and regulations to the, let's say, national conditions. And even here in Malta, you can observe the, let's say, some drawbacks, bottlenecks regarding the infrastructure rollout. We talked about that yesterday, and I'm widely experienced with what's going on, what MCA is struggling by means of infrastructure rollout, both passive and active infrastructure. And it is undoubtedly the need for releasing some bottlenecks regarding the collaboration with verticals, especially construction, especially energy providers, to maximize the benefits and in the same time to minimize the costs. Second, it's about the common understanding that there is a need for collaboration rather than the competition right now. We are fully competitive and we need to find a solution to guarantee the, let's say, technologically mixed infrastructure rollout that could guarantee the especially last mile connection, which seems to be the most crucial. It is popularly believed that it is even more than, let's say, 50% of the total capex for investment. So this is something that undoubtedly the regional stakeholder could support to give this, let's say, as I mentioned, incentives for the private entrepreneurs to connect wide gaps and to connect this, let's say, the most costly 10% of the society to the NGN infrastructure. And last but not least, I would say, to make some kind of, let's say, closing remark, that apart from the, let's say, infrastructure rollout, apart from the common understanding, there is a need to, for the, let's say, some kind of future thinking and the strategic approach regarding the fact that we are not a single rider anymore as a telco industry. We need to collaborate with our verticals, with other stakeholders, and even as was mentioned about IoT, augmented reality, about the collaboration between the other branches, especially academia and the research centers. It's undoubtedly the way that we should follow. I mean, to guarantee that in future we can deliver the, let's say, which is called the gigabit society. But this means not only the infrastructure rollout, it means the, let's say, capacity building, it means the quality of service, it means the, let's say, educational matters as well. So we are like, let's say, some kind of, let's say, a bit small part of this value-added chain from the end-user perspective, and we need to find ourselves in this reality in which we are not, maybe in future we will not play the major role, but we will need to balance our, let's say, abilities and our, let's say, needs with the other branches of economy. So this is quite crucial to have this, let's say, in mind and to work together, I mean, to fulfill the KPIs that are in front of us by 2030.
Thank you. Excellent. This brings this panel to a conclusion. I'd like to thank our esteemed speakers this morning. Please.